Welcome to the John Freakin' Muir Pod. Lace up those boots and sling on the pack for a romp through trails, short and long. With your host and Renaissance man, Doc. It's time to embrace the suck.
Welcome back to another week on the trail. I'm Doc, and this is the John Freakin' Muir Pod. Let's start off with a reminder. If you are enjoying the podcast, help us out. Take just a minute, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. And if you're not enjoying the pod, well, just go ahead and keep that to yourself. All right, let's get to this week's guest. This week, we are going to hear about a U.S. trail that we have not previously discussed on the podcast, the North Country Trail. This week's guest reached out to me via the podcast website and told me a little bit about his time on the NCT, and I knew we had to have him on to share his experiences. Welcome to the John Freakin' Muir Pod Triple Crowner and NCT hiker, Ryan Bunting.
Thanks for having me on, Doc. NCT hiker, I haven't heard it put like that, but I guess we did. Yeah, I guess we walked those miles. So it's an amazing trail, man. I'm stoked to talk about it.
Have I just coined a new term? Can I put a trademark on that?
You can. I think you can. There might not be a lot of people you can that will fall underneath that term because there's not a lot of people that do the NCT in general. But yeah, you're free to have that term. I mean, I'm not the power that be is the power that be, but you're free on my end.
Okay, you heard it here. Nice. Now, have you heard of apple pie? Not the food, not the food, but the hiker.
Yes. We actually ran into each other about twice out on the trail this year.
I think she's still out on the NCT right now.
Yeah, it blows my mind. Actually, my partner and I, we kind of have a funny segment. We're like, "Where's apple pie today?" And we check in and see the miles she's doing and like the snow she's going through. Whew, the mentality she has to have to step off those miles consistently. I mean, I don't think I could do it. It's impressive to no degree how she gets after it.
Yeah, I stumbled across her feed on Instagram and I reached out to her and she got back to me. I shot out there on the trail in the snow. And when she had some signal, she got back to me and said that she'd be happy to sit down and talk with me when she's off the trail. So I can't wait to hear about some of her stories and her fortitude. It's incredible. Yeah,
we actually ran into her one time in Ohio. Excuse me, not Ohio. One time in Minnesota going through the Kekabatic Wilderness. It's the Boundary Waters canoe area up there. And like middle of nowhere, we ran across her there. Then we actually ran across her in PA because she was doing an NCT flip-flop hike. So she was going eastbound first, and then she flipped up to North Dakota and started going back that way as well. So it was amazing running into another thru hiker out there.
Nice. All right. Now, hey, on the podcast, we go strictly by trail names, so I won't be calling you Ryan for much longer. I imagine, looking at your hiking resume, that you somewhere along the trail, you had to have come up with or had to have been given a trail name. Do you have a trail name?
I do. It's Constantine.
Constantine. And tell us the story behind the trail name Constantine.
Man, I wish I had a more interesting story for you. So it actually began on the AT back in 2016, my first hike out there. And my trail name was actually Icy Hot, like within the first week, because I rolled into Muskrat Creek Shelter. It's like the first shelter across the North Carolina line from Georgia. And I went into there shivering, like borderline hypothermic, like freezing cold. It had been pouring on me all day. And I'm just, bundled up, shivering, getting into the shelter, dumped some hot sauce in my ramen. And with the hot sauce, all my shivers stopped. So somebody was like, "Oh man, you rolled in here icy and now you're hot." So the Icy Hot. But then the next day, my buddy and I were climbing the mountains and stepping off the miles there. And he's like, "You know what? That's too much of a mouthful. We got to figure out a name that rolls off the tongue a little bit better." So he's like, "Have you ever seen the movie Constantine?" I told him, No, I haven't. He's like, "You kind of remind me of the character because back in 2016, when I first started hiking, I kind of was all upper body and I wasn't a good hiker. Like I was learning the ropes. So it really burned my muscles, like those uphills and the downhills I love. So on the uphills, I was praising everything I could find. And on the uphills, I was cussing everything I could find. And on the downhills, I was praising everything. So he's like, "You're kind of half good, half evil, like the character in the movie." So not a great story. It's not the Roman emperor, but it's based off of the movie Constantine.
I had a feeling it was based on the movie and not the Roman emperor.
Yeah. No, it's not that impressive. I'm just Keanu Reeves reincarnate, I guess.
Got it. Now, just to point out to your friend, Icy Hot, that's 3 syllables. Constantine, also 3 syllables.
Huh. Yeah, I can never say that we're the smartest out there. We're the ones hiking thousands of miles. So yeah, I don't know. I've never actually even thought of that. That's actually quite funny.
But if Constantine rolls off the tongue a little bit easier, then by all means, have at it.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, have you listened to any episodes of the John Freaking Muir pod?
I have. I actually listened to your most recent one, and I've listened to a couple of your live ones when you were out on the PCT. Before you hopped on, I was saying about it was making me miss those miles out there.
Yeah, I only asked because I want to make sure that you're aware of a segment that we have it towards the end of the episode called the Pro Tip Insight of the Week. And that's why I will turn to you and I'll say, Constantine, what do you have for us? What bit of wisdom can you share with our listeners to make their next outdoor experience even better? So don't be surprised when we get there.
Okay, cool.
You've got plenty of time to think of something good.
I think I already have one, so I think I'm ready to rock.
All right. Hey, something I'm going to surprise you with, because I know you've seen the outline, but I've added in a new feature, and I'm calling it current events, because every once in a while I'll be scrolling through the headlines and I'll see something that I think is very appropriate to our hiking audience out there. And I came across something this morning from the UC Berkeley Central Sierra Snow Lab. And they are reporting that they have a new December record for snowfall in the Sierras, 193.7 inches in the month of December. And we've got a few more days left.
Oh, so much snow, too much.
Yeah, it breaks the old record for December set in 1970. So that's pretty incredible.
Yeah, that's intense. I can step through the snow, but it's not my preferred method. My partner and I did the GDT in 2020, and we were just picking our routes through snow the entire time. And it got a little bit of flashbacky there when you started telling me how much snow was there. I'm like, I'm in a house right now. I'm safe. I don't need to be walking through the snow right now.
So with that level of snow in the Sierras, I mean, what are the implications for our PCT hikers and JMT hikers this season? What can they expect?
They're going to be going through, well, depends how fast it melts out. But I mean, if they're going through April, May, June, depending how quick they get there, if they're going northbound, they're going to be going through a lot of swelled rivers, a lot of swelled creeks. It also depends how quickly it melts out. I'm not a snow expert, but when we went through the Sierras on the PCT, we did it in 2017, which was also a high snow year. And it was just a lot of swelled water, a lot of swelled creeks coming off, snow melt coming off the tops of the mountain. So again, they can expect slower travel. Just look at where you're going, look where you're crossing, and just expect slower days. Be safe out there and just kind of know where you're putting your foot and know your footfalls, because sometimes the snow can melt out underneath too. So, I mean, it's just slower miles. They can still get through it if they want to go suffer that way. So I don't know, slower miles, longer days, the joys of post-holing. Yeah. And I would even recommend, I don't know, it depends on the hiker, but bringing snowshoes into the Sierras would be pretty intense. They're not only heavy, but they would also really bring down the miles even farther, at least from my perspective. Some hiker might fly across the snow on snowshoes, but if you got micros or even crampons for some of those climbs, you should be set. Micros should be able to get you through a lot of those conditions, and it's just being safe. It's just being safe and going slow. A lot of those ridges too on the backside is where it usually is the worst if you're going northbound. So just make sure your footsteps are secure, and if somebody's broken through the path for you, make sure they're secure and kind of just put one foot in front of the other. It's not rocket science, but sometimes it's a little harder.
Yep. And it's not just the mountain passes either. I mean, there's going to be implications for river crossings as well.
Yeah. Yeah. The river crossings, I think there's the one there that everybody always fears, Evolution Creek.
Yeah.
I think it's called.
Mm-hmm.
When we went through in 2017, we were swimming it, but the flow wasn't super hard. So, I mean, you just swim the creek and get across and look for a place that's not flowing as hard. But then there was also one, you probably know it better than me. I think it's called Kings Canyon Creek.
Yeah.
Kings Canyon was super swift and super fast, and that was really sketchy for us going across.
Yeah. In fact, in 2017, I'm glad you brought that up, because my son and I were also out there on the John Muir Trail in 2017. And that was such a high snow year and a high water year that the Rangers actually put a posting. I mean, there's all kinds of warning on social media and on the National Park Service websites, but also they posted a warning miles ahead of where this crossing was, telling people to find an alternate crossing because the main crossing was not safe that year. In fact, I think a couple people died that year.
Yes. Actually, I am ashamed to admit, I forget what the name was, but I think one of the women that got swept away, we got to the crossing about a day or two after that event happened, and a ranger had come out and put a note like right on the tree or post right next to the crossing, kind of letting you know what was going on. And I don't know, kind of looking back, you think you know better. You think you know better, being like, well, maybe I should have turned around, but it's hard to when you're trying to get that continuous footpath and you try to balance safety and being able to push forward. So we had a good crew. We had about 4 or 5 people that we kind of did a fireman walk across, kind of hand on the shoulders, but it was still super sketchy. Yeah, if you were up there, you ran into a lot of those creeks that were not so great. Yeah,
it's kind of tragic, but you and I, it's for a tragic reason, but you and I were looking at that same note that same year, which is kind of interesting because I remember that note very clearly.
Yeah, it kind of impacts you, especially in the middle of nowhere. Like when you're just out in nature, you don't have cell signal, you can't really be up to date with a lot of stuff, and you don't have a lot of stimulation going on. You see something that's sombering that it hits deeper. It hits deeper, especially knowing it's somebody like yourself that's out there, never expecting that to happen and just traveling through the mountains, enjoying themselves. And it's very sombering to read something like that when you get to it.
Yep. All right. So for all of you 2022 JMT hikers and PCT hikers hitting the Sierras this summer, be careful out there. Do your research ahead of time. Pay attention to the signs and be safe. So there you go.
And I think a big thing, I know you wanted to do it at the end of the segment, is like, don't think you can't turn back. Granted, that's me coming from somebody that went through it, but it's like, you hear a lot of that nowadays because you can always come back and do those miles on a flip-flop, where you can go out and hit the rest of the trail and then come back when it's safer. It's like, I know it's hard to, but don't think you're losing anything if you decide to turn back and go out of that section for a month or 2 months, whatever it may be.
Right. Now, Constantine, I told you that there was a pro tip segment at the end of the episode, but you are free to sprinkle throughout the episodes as many pro tips as you want. But I'm still going to turn to you at the end and ask you for your pro tips. So don't think you're off the hook now.
Oh, no. I think I still have a good one. I'll try to keep that one in reserve.
Okay. All right. Keep one in the tank.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, another segment we do is the Must Bring Gear Review, sponsored by the ultralight backpacking gear company Outdoor Vitals. And here's how it works. If you were to let a stranger pack your bag with pretty much generic gear for a multi-day hike, what is the one specific piece of gear you would insist on being packed? And if you got a particular brand for that specific piece of gear, even better. So, Constantine, what is your must-bring piece of gear out there?
It doesn't have to be one of the big three. It can kind of be anything.
It doesn't. It could be a luxury item if you want. Yeah.
Believe it or not, I think it would be my my balaclava, the face covering.
Yes. Yeah.
So I can get away with not having the rest of my body kind of insulated or kind of wrapped up. So a lot of the time I'll even hike in snow in shorts. Sometimes, depending on the weather, hiking it in a long sleeve. But if this area right here is like around my face and head is cold, I just freeze. There was a time on the GDT that for about 10 days straight, I don't think I got out of that balaclava. Like I woke up, put it on, and it was just so nasty. And there's a lot of snot rockets and a lot of nasty stuff. I won't go too much into detail there, but I wore it legitimately for 10 days straight and it saved me. So probably the balaclava.
If you wash it every 3 days, it should be fine.
Yeah, but we were in a section that we didn't get to town for 10 days. So it was pretty gnarly there. I mean, at certain points when I would put it up, all of the snot would freeze. So it was like kind of a sheet of cardboard and sandpaper mixed together. And then you would breathe into it and it would thaw it. But what it did was just thaw all the snot. And then it just became a new puddle of nastiness. So even though I love to hate it, it's still the balaclava.
That is an image I want to get out of my mind. That's very descriptive. Thank you.
Yeah, you didn't know what we were going into here. You didn't think that question was going to take that type of turn, huh?
No, yeah, I never know what the answers might be when I ask them. So this is always fantastic for me and the listeners.
Yeah, and the brand name, it has a BS on it. I don't exactly know what the brand name is. I got it back in 17, I think, just from an outdoor shop. So any balaclava that works for you, I guess.
Okay, I've got one of those too. It helps in the cold for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, let's talk about gear for a little bit. What was your base weight on your long trails?
Oh man, I didn't know if you were going to ask me that question. Absolutely no idea. By no way am I a ULer. I just shove stuff in my pack, and if it works for me, it works for me. A lot of my trail family have called me just like a tank before because I just try to power through it. But I don't use finesse. I kind of just like set my sight on something and just power through. So base weight, my partner, she might actually be able to tell you. She would probably know my weight in my pack better than I would actually. So absolutely no idea. I'm hoping underneath 10 pounds.
You're hoping underneath 10 pounds. That's pretty ultra light.
Yeah, I still don't carry a lot. It's just I don't weigh what I'm carrying. So like for the big three, I have a hyperlight backpack, and then I have a big Agnes tent, UL tent, and then we use a Western Mountaineering.
No, it's from Z-Packs.
A Z-Packs quilt. So I didn't even know the brand name.
You want me to jump in here? I think your base weight's about 11.5 pounds.
Oh, she told me it was over 10. That's not nice.
Oh, heartbreaking. Heartbreaking. You have to introduce your partner and have her come on camera if she doesn't mind.
Yeah, Magpie. We just picked up some stuff today, so we're doing some house things, but yep.
Hello.
Hi there.
Magpie.
What's your name?
I'm Magpie. And yeah.
So
I do all the gear stuff in the family.
She's the gearhead, yeah.
I work for an outdoor store, so I'm the spreadsheet wizard.
Nice. Magpie, you're in charge of logistics and gear. It's always good to have a partner like that.
I might be in charge of logistics.
I mean, we're both sort of in charge of logistics.
I get lost every so often.
Yeah, you do.
She's definitely in charge of the gear, though, 100%.
All right. Very nice meeting you, Magpie.
Yeah, she's we actually met back in 19, and I've been stepping off a mile since. So she's a really strong hiker as well.
Fantastic. Now you kind of got a little bit into our next segment here, and that is the hiking pole, and it's POLL, like a survey hiking pole, not like a hiking pole that you carry with you. And this is really to kind of separate the normal hiker from the absolute crazy nuts hiker out there. So I'm going to ask you some questions and see which side you fall on. You ready?
Cool. Let's do it.
Okay. Boots or trail runners?
Definitely trail runners. 100% so.
Okay. And why is that?
I carried a pair of boots on the Appalachian Trail when I say carried, I actually carried them. So I walked in them for a few hundred miles, and then they started falling apart. And then I was very sentimental about my first pairs of shoes on a thru hike. So I actually carried them attached to my pack for another few hundred miles. So boots and me no longer get along. They were too heavy. And trail runners is just, you can actually crush through some miles. And it seems the way that my foot falls upon the ground, I guess it's all kind of a learning process. So like if you were in boots, you know how to walk in those, and you know how to shift the foot so it doesn't get irritated. But I kind of just evolved into trail runners, and at this point it's just kind of like a second skin on my foot, and I walk without problems, I guess.
Yeah. Now, Constantine, I have not run into a long trailer yet that has said, boots are the way to go. You have to do boots. Everybody I've talked to so far who's done some serious mileage, they've all talked about the value of trail runners.
Yeah. And I don't know if it was kind of just a consensus of the shift in thought with hikers. So like maybe if it was just more prevalent in a lot of the hikers that, I don't want to say younger, but a lot of the old time hikers you would see in boots, like on the Appalachian Trail. If you saw people in the 60 plus age range that had been hiking year after year for a long time, they were wearing boots. So it was like just part of their standard kit. So I think it's kind of just part of the hiking culture, I guess, at this point, is just people even get into it starting with trail runners, and it's just what you know at that point. So they just get used to it.
Yep. All right. Next question. And you already answered this one, I think. Tent or tarp?
Tent. 100% tent again. You will not find me underneath a tarp. There's no way.
What's so bad about a tarp?
If I'm going to be sleeping outside, I would much rather be cowboy camping. So like even in a tent, I don't even like putting the fly on unless I have to. So like with a tent, I just like having that bug netting just in case.
The bugs. It's the
But
bugs.
it's the bugs. But if I'm in the
Yeah.
desert or even on the JMT and it's not bug season out there, and if I want a cowboy camp, I'm just gonna put my mat on the ground, sleeping bag on the ground, and just hang out underneath the stars. So at that point for me, it's kind of like, why have a tarp? Because if I'm setting up the tent, there's a reason I'm setting up the tent,
Mhm.
either bugs, weather moving in, whatnot. But if I don't have to set up the tent, I'm cowboy camping.
Okay. Sleeping bag or quilt?
So individually sleeping bag, but when I hike with a partner, quilt. The quilt, we both kind of sleep hot, so the quilt actually lets a little bit of more airflow in. But then having the sleeping bag, even if it's a little bit heavier, if I'm hiking individually, I like having that comfort of knowing there's a little extra material just in case. Again, I'm not a ULer, so a couple extra grams for me or whatever it is okay.
Again, he says he's not a ULer when he's got an 11 and a half pound base weight. Even, I know it's not under 10, but that's still pretty impressive, Constantine.
I don't know how accurate she was. I hope it's underneath 10. I really think it might be.
I know what Constantine's doing after this interview's over. He's getting the scale out and he's weighing his gear.
I actually might. I got to pull it out from the closet, but yeah, I might actually do that.
All right. Now, this last question, this is the one that really separates the crazies from the normal people. So be careful on this one. Stove or cold soak?
Oh, you ready for a twist?
Yes, I've already encountered a couple of them with you. So let's keep going.
Neither. I like both, but if I had a preference, it would be neither.
And explain that. What do you do with neither?
So a lot of the time it's dependent on the trail you're doing. But so if you're pushing hard enough miles and you can get to resupplies quick enough, you can really pack out stuff that might go bad in a day or two. So you can pack out a sandwich from a town and have that for a day or two. And if you're doing 60 to 70 miles within that day or two, you're able to get to the next town. So you can pack out a lot of stuff. You can pack out hummus. You can pack out stuff that is not the classical definition of backpacking food. You don't have to hydrate it. So by the time you get to camp, you just shove your face full of food and then pass out. So it's very contingent to a type of hiking style. Like you have to be crushing through miles and you have to know what trail you're on. Like on the CDT, it's harder to do that, of course. And in the Sierras, it'd be harder as well because you have very small outlets to get to town. But on something like the Florida Trail or the NCT, you can just pick up food in town and then have that last for, anywhere from 60 to 100 miles.
And that almost feels like it's kind of normal type eating while you're on the trail. I mean, when you are doing dehydrated food, I mean, that's one set of, that's one type of eating. If you're doing cold soak, that's different than what you normally do back at home. This is almost like back at home type style food and shoving it down.
Yeah, I still eat really bad on the trail though. Like if I'm going, I was talking about sandwiches. Most of the time it will be a sandwich for dinner, but then also like the stuff I'm eating through the day, it's just a lot of bars and then it's also chips and candy. So it's a lot of just pre-packaged stuff that's easy to unwrap and just kind of shove in the mouth.
Yeah, some of those bars are so dense. I mean, you get bored chewing. I mean, it's just a chore to choke one of those down.
It is. Actually, funny enough, there was one bar, I forget what it was, but we were taking a very quick lunch break on the NCT this year, and we were trying to hit a really high mile day. So the bar, like each bite was taking me so long to chew. Magpie was like looking at me and just like, you could feel the energy coming off of her being like, okay, come on, hurry it up. Let's go. We got to go. We got to go. So yeah, they're dense. They're very dense bars.
Yeah. All right. Hey, before we get too far down the trail, let's back up a little bit. I want to hear about your background, where you grew up, what kinds of sports and hobbies did you play growing up, and how did you get involved with the thru hiking cult? Because that's what it is. It's a cult. Any organization that convinces you to march for months on end and sleep in the dirt has got to be a cult.
I agree. Yeah.
So where'd you grow up?
So I grew up in South Carolina, and another kind of contradiction here is I was a big ice hockey player. So I was very big into hockey, and you hear South Carolina and you don't think about hockey there.
No.
So as I grew up, I was, of course, in roller hockey until I could start reaching past South Carolina's kind of like borders to find better rinks. So when I became a teenager, I was traveling a lot for ice hockey because Charleston, South Carolina had a team, and then Savannah, Georgia had a team.
Charleston Chiefs.
Excuse me?
The Charleston Chiefs.
Is that the ice hockey team?
Did you ever see Slapshot?
I probably did, but
the movie with Paul Newman from the 70s. It's about a minor league hockey team, the Charleston Chiefs. Oh, you got to watch it now. It's awesome.
Slapshot. I'm writing that down too.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was traveling a lot. When I was a teen for hockey, and eventually I just wanted to pursue it at a higher level. So I ended up moving up to Philadelphia to be on more teams, have easier access to hockey. And around 17 or 18, I forget what age it was, but I got a really bad injury. Excuse me. A defender came and like popped my knee back, like knee to knee contact. And I was in a straight cast for like 8 months. So that took me out of the ice at like a really critical time when people are progressing into the juniors and stuff like that. So that kind of took me out for the count. And when I find a quote unquote hobby or passion, I kind of throw my entire life into it. Like I revolve my life around what it is. So like hockey, that's how I kind of define myself at that point. I was a hockey player all my life, and then I lost that, and there was a big part of my life that was lost. So I guess the years after, I was kind of looking for something to fuel it with. And it's kind of a common story too. It's like a lot of hikers just kind of stumble into the trail. So I went to school back in South Carolina, and the closest place to hike was the Appalachian Trail. So we would pick apart kind of section hikes and do, I don't know, 10 to 50 miles. And my knee was still in such bad shape. Like my knee would like lock up, and it would just be ramrod straight for like 5 to 10 miles sometimes. Like I couldn't bend it again. And so eventually I decided there was kind of something there. Once I learned that you could through hike it, I wanted to see if my physical body could keep up to that degree of output again. And after that, as you know, as a lot of guests probably say, they just got bit by the bug and then fully into it.
Yeah. A couple of follow-up questions. What position did you play in hockey?
Left wing.
Left wing. Okay. Yeah. My parents grew up in the Midwest, and so I never played as a kid in Southern California. But once I hit 18, 19 years old, I decided I wanted to give it a shot, because I grew up in the Forum down in Inglewood, watching the Los Angeles Kings back when they were not popular at all. I mean, there was hardly anybody in the place, but grew up with hockey in my life and decided I wanted to give it a shot. And I played, I think, 3 or 4 seasons in an amateur adult league, and had 3 leg injuries and eventually hung up the skates. So I can feel your pain. I wasn't at your level, certainly, but yeah. And then go ahead.
Oh, sorry. It's a brutal sport. You kind of have to get lucky in a certain aspect to not have a intense injury if you're playing that much.
Right. And then you said something I want to touch on, and that is that when you find something, you go after it wholeheartedly. You're obsessive about it. And I have found with a lot of people that I talk to about various outdoor adventures, there's a high degree of obsession involved in long trail through hikers.
I would agree. I think it's a type of personality, I guess. I don't know if it'd be complete personality or some type of weird thing going on, weird wiring we have up here. But yeah, I noticed the same thing. A lot of the hikers that I know and that keep going after trail year after year, obsession is a good term for it. It's definitely a form of obsession. Is like you revolve your life completely around it to go out there and do more and more and more.
Mm-hmm. And you seemed a little bit put off when I said that Magpie was in charge of logistics. And I'm seeing now with your obsessiveness on this, that you probably do a lot of planning, and you probably do. And that's part of the pleasure of planning for these hikes is doing the logistics and how everything's going to work and when we leave it and how many miles and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And it's also, I kind of pointed that out too, because it's been an ongoing joke between us for about 2 years, because I tried to bring her. So I got almost sucked out into the ocean on the PNT. So on the Pacific Northwest Trail, there's this one point near the end called Scotts Point. I forget what it's called, but it's like close to the western terminus. And the old GPX track used to have you trying to go around it. And I tried to go around it when the tide was going out, but it was still really high. And I stepped off like directly into the ocean, like water over my head. So I joke a lot with her, and we have this ongoing joke that follow Constantine and you'll get swept out into the ocean or go off a cliff or something like that. But no, we do actually get into the planning pretty good. For the NCT especially, we really had to be kind of strict or kind of very in depth with planning on that trail.
Mm-hmm. All right. And hey, what are you doing these days to pay the bills to finance your trips?
So I actually own an outdoor gear company.
Oh, you do? Okay. What's the name of the company? Let's plug it.
It's called 11 Skies. It's still a very small company. I formed it back in 2020, grew it in 2019, and then went public with it in 2020. And that's grown to the point that it lets us fuel our adventures and kind of step off the next mile. So right now, you're looking at where I do a good amount of my work. I work from home. We're up in Canada. So yeah, she works in an outdoor shop, and we together kind of run the company.
Okay. And it's 11 Skies?
11 Skies, spelled SKYS.
SKYS. All right. And what kind of things can we find at 11 Skies?
So we hyper focused in shorts and pants. We kind of found a niche within the community while we were stepping off those miles that a lot of the time everything else was covered. If you think of a backpack, you think of 3 name brand companies. If you think of shoes, you think of the big 3. So like a lot of stuff already had that association with other companies. But a lot of the times, like especially on the CDT, I think I went through 5 or 6 pairs of shorts just with the bushwhacks. They just get shredded, all of this stuff. So as 2019, 2020 rolled around, it kind of felt like that purpose wasn't being served. There wasn't an ultralight piece of gear that would really withstand the rigors of these more intense trails. So we're hyper-focused in shorts and pants right now, and possibly this year we might branch into thermals, but I don't know. I think we're going to stay hyper-focused for pants and shorts right now.
Okay. Fantastic. Yeah. Now we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to get into some of the nitty gritty of your hikes, including the North Country National Scenic Trail. So stay tuned for that. We'll be right back. The John Freakin' Muir Pod is sponsored by Outdoor Vitals, the ultralight backpacking gear company whose mission is to improve the mental, physical, and emotional health of mankind by facilitating impactful outdoor experiences. Outdoor Vitals creates innovative technical products with confidence-inspiring education that empower outdoor ultralight adventurers. Their focus on performance enables you to live ultralight with gear you can actually be confident with. Whether you're looking for an ultralight sleep system, shelter, or pack, or if you're looking for top quality apparel for the trail, you can find it at Outdoor Vitals. Do yourself a favor. Live ultra light. And welcome back. We are talking to Constantine, who is not only a triple crowner, but he is also, what did I say earlier? He is a NCT hiker.
Yeah.
Okay. And, as I looked at your Instagram page, your profile, I looked at your bio, and there was a whole series of acronyms there of trails that you have done. And some of them I knew, some of them were obvious, and some of them like, I have no idea what this acronym stands for. So you've got a lot of miles under your trail runners. How old are you, Constantine?
I'm 27.
27. How many thousands of miles have you put under your shoes?
Honestly, it's another question like the base weight. I don't know. Somewhere above 20,000, but I wouldn't know an exact number.
That is a lot of walking, my friend.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just want to go through the abbreviations, the acronyms on your Instagram bio, just to make sure that everybody knows what we're talking about here. So AT, very, very, everybody knows what the AT is. PCT, everybody knows what the PCT is. Third one, I'm already stumped. OCT. What is the OCT?
The Oregon Coast Trail.
Oregon Coast Trail. Okay.
Yep.
CDT, that's the third long trail to make it the Triple Crown. The PT.
Pinhoti Trail. I don't know if it actually is just the PT or they have a different acronym, but I just put the PT. So
hey, that works for me. Okay. Yeah. Pinhoti Trail. PNT, Pacific Northwest Trail.
Yep.
Right. The IAT, is that the International Appalachian Trail?
I think these two trails have the same acronym. So it's the Ice Age Trail.
Ice Age Trail. Yes. Okay. I've heard of that one. Yep. AZT is the Arizona Trail. The NTNST.
Yeah, it's a mouthful. The Natchez Trail. It's easier just calling it the Natchez Trace, but technically that's what their acronym is.
It's the Natchez Trace National Scenic Trail.
Yes.
That's what it stands for. I knew the NST, the last three were National Scenic Trail. I wasn't sure what the NT was. Okay. GDT. You have referred to the GDT a couple of times. And I have to admit, I'm not sure what the GDT is.
Oh man, it's the great.
I would think it's the god darn trail.
Yeah, we referred to it like that sometimes. It's the Great Divide Trail. So it's the continuation of the CDT up north into Canada.
Oh, okay. Wow. How many miles is that?
They measured in kilometers, and my kind of conversion is not up to par. 600, 700, it depends because they technically have two northern terminuses. You can either get out at this place called Mount Robertson, I believe, or Lake Kakwa. So it depends. And then also the northern terminus, to get where you parked your car, you have to walk like 80 miles out of the middle of nowhere. So I don't know, 600, 700 miles, somewhere in there.
Okay. How about the VIT?
Ooh, the Vancouver Island Trail. We actually hiked that a month after it was founded, officially founded.
Now, Vancouver Island, I know from watching Alone, the early seasons of Alone, they have the highest density of cougars and bears.
Yep.
That's crazy. Did you encounter any out there?
A lot of signs, of signs of bears, a lot of signs of scat, that type of stuff. But we didn't actually. Oh, I'm sorry. Near the end, there was a day near Port McNeil that we ran into 5 black bears, but they don't want anything to do with you most of the time. So yeah,
and
not
heck,
any.
You're a hockey player, so I mean, no problem.
Well, it was funny. Magpie was screaming at one of the bears to make it run away. And then she started turning around and running towards me. I'm like, don't start running towards me. So, no, she was in the lead. She can deal with the bears.
Hey, Magpie, you don't have to be faster than the bear. You just need to be faster than Constantine. That's all.
I don't know where she went. But yeah, she knows that. She is faster than me a lot of the time, too. So she's good on that.
Okay. S2S.
Oh, that's the C2 Sky Trail. It's a trail from Squamish up in British Columbia to the little town of Darcy, and it's a very small trail. It's like 120 miles, but I was trying to really push miles out and see how quickly I could do it in, so I like ran it out in like 52 hours or something like that.
Holy smokes. It's just a small little trail, only 120 miles. I've done a 125-mile hike 3 times, and I haven't done it in 52 hours. I'm ashamed to admit. So
but if you're doing it depends on the miles too, right? So like the miles on the JMT are harder than the 125 miles here. So it's dependent on the miles.
Yeah. FT, I assume, is the Florida Trail.
Yes.
The PHT?
Potomac Heritage Trail.
Okay. And the NET, is that the New England Trail?
It is.
It is. Okay. So we just went through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 different acronyms that are on your Instagram page. Now I'm sure there's probably some others that you didn't have listed that you
I tried to only list the national scenic trails or the big ones around that. And if you're referring to my Instagram page, the upkeep on it is not great. As you saw, the last post I had was months ago. So yeah, I don't know exactly all of them.
You probably ran out of characters that they allow you in the bio.
Yeah, I actually did.
Yeah. Well, hey, another island trail for you is the Catalina Trail. Have you heard of that one?
Is that the 30 miles in California?
It's about 38 miles. It's on an island off the coast of Long Beach, California, down in Southern California.
Vaguely. I vaguely heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah. There's bison on the island.
Oh, that'd be sweet.
Yeah.
That'd be really cool.
There's signs everywhere that say, don't get closer than 80 feet to the bison, but the bison, they don't know how to read that. So, it's, you wake up in camp and there's one standing there. So,
oh, man, they got to teach them the language a little bit more.
That's
they need
right.
to have some classes for the bison.
All right. Hey, let's talk about, let's go into detail on some of your hikes here. Let's talk about the Triple Crown. You are a Triple Crowner. Is that, you feel quite accomplished about that? I mean, was that something you set out to do once you had gotten some experience on the AT? You said, you know what, this is something I'm going to do.
No, it's very much kind of just the progression of going after trail after trail after trail. So like when I finished the AT, there was about a week leading up to the finish, and then a week once I got off that I kind of never wanted to hike again. Like my knees were shot, like I was broken down. I was just kind of done with it. I loved the adventure part of it and the hike, but I was kind of like, that's enough. So once that wore off and I wanted to hike again, you just heard about the PCT, so you're like, well, of course that's just a natural progression. That's what I'm going to go to next. And then the same, you do 1 or 3. Once you're on the PCT, at that point you're like, well, there's a CDT, and the planning too around those big 3. I don't want to say is easy, but it's easier than some other trails that don't have as much information around them. So it was just a natural progression. Yeah, it was never the goal. It was just kind of what happened at the end.
Okay.
Or at the beginning, I guess.
And you did the 3 long trails in consecutive years. You did the AT in 2016, the PCT in 2017, and then you knocked it off with the CDT in 2018.
Yes.
And how did your gear evolve from 2016 to 2018? What did you learn along the way, and what did you adjust?
I am a very slow learner. So for the entirety of the AT and PCT, I carried what I called my turtle shell backpack. Like it was like a 70 liter, I think, somewhere in there. And I just crammed it full of crap. At this point, as you know, like I still just throw stuff in my backpack, but the evolution of gear, it took a while. It took a while for me to kind of let go of my ways. Like, as you also heard, I carried boots that I wasn't even using for a few hundred miles. So it took a while. Not until the CDT did I start really changing my gear. And at that point, it was because I wanted to go faster and I wanted to go harder. It was a different type of hike for me. So the ATM PCT was really sitting back into a pace, really enjoying the miles, like enjoying the adventure. But then when I looked at the CDT, I really wanted to start testing how fast I could go and start pushing my body a little more. And at that point, I knew I needed to transition away from big bulky gear. So it took a while. It took a while to learn.
Well, I mean, you said right at the beginning of the podcast that you're not a finesse guy. You're kind of a brute force method kind of guy, slow learner.
I mean, a lot of the time on the ATM PCT, I was just okay with my shoulders just breaking by the end of the day. And it was just what I knew. It was just common. So like by the time I was doing 25-30s on the PCT with my big tank of a pack, it was just the pain that I was used to. So there was really no difference for me. And there was really no reason for me to change the gear until I started transitioning the way I was hiking. So there's really no impetus to spark that change. I'm okay with just pushing through suffering. So I was okay with it.
Okay. Now, I'm going to ask you to rank those 3 trails. We've had a number of Triple Crowners on the podcast here. They all have their various opinions, and I think their preferences kind of line up with maybe which trail they did first, or where they grew up, or where they had heard about the most. Interested to hear how it lines up for you. What was the best trail out there of those 3?
We could go into some philosophy here, trying to define best, but I won't do that to you. Best, if we're just going off a gut feeling, CDT.
Really? CDT?
Yeah. It really transformed what I was doing with hiking, what kind of I was going for and what I was testing. So it was a very transformational hike. Then from there, I love out west, PCT, and then after that, AT.
Okay. AT seems to fall at the bottom of a number of Triple Crowners that I've talked to. They don't call it the Green Tunnel for nothing. I mean, there's not a lot of great views throughout the hike. There are some scenic points along the hike, but you're pretty much covered by the trees out there.
It's hard, but the AT, out of those trails, the community is the largest. Like the amount of social aspect of that trail is the most quote unquote welcoming, because like all the time you're running into trail angels, you're running into other hikers, your trail family is just growing and growing and growing. So like if that's what you love, you're gonna love that one the most. And of course I love it because it's my first trail, but like it's also brutal. It's a hard hike. It's a very hard hike. Mm-hmm. And I think the reason people get through it is because of that group of strength of social aspects around it. So I understand why people rate it down there.
Yeah, and by the same token, though, I've had other people who will fight to the death to tell you that that is the best trail. That is their favorite trail, and you cannot convince them otherwise.
I get both mentalities. That's why I said we could go into the philosophical part of it a little bit. He's like, that's the gut feeling of where I'm coming from with the ranking, but it depends also what you're ranking it on. Like if you're ranking it on kind of the best trail to acclimate into through hiking, the best trail to learn about who you are as a hiker, the best trail to like meet other hikers, AT is going to be at the top of the list. So it's really depending how you're ranking them.
Right. Now, for those 3 long trails, let's talk about some highlights and some lowlights. You know, what were some of your favorite memories from that experience out there on those 3? Do you have a couple you can share with us?
Yeah, Mount Whitney. Actually, funny enough, when we were talking, Mount Whitney, we actually woke up to try to get to the top before sunrise, and that was awesome. We had camped close to Guitar Lake a little bit before wherever that boundary was that you can't camp within, and we had to step some hard miles to get up there, and I still had my tank of a backpack, and I remember just suffering so much to get up there for the sunrise, but we made it, and by the time we made it, it was just like so worth it. I can't describe the feeling at the top there with kind of the sun coming up and knowing you're at the tallest point around in the continuous 48. We had such a great crew. We kind of hung out there for an hour or two, and then we actually did Forester Pass and getting close to Glen that day. So it was a really good hiking day too. That was awesome on the PCT, and at this point too,
that's pretty epic. I mean, that being up at the top, it is quite a sensation, and just knowing that nobody at that point is higher than you, that isn't in an airplane, over the U.S. is pretty incredible. And there's a campsite. I don't know if you saw it. There's a campsite just below the Whitney Trail sign. Where it says 1.9 miles. Just below that sign, there's a spot for maybe 6 or 8 tents. And I've camped at that location a couple of times at 13,400 feet. It is just incredible views from that vantage point.
Oh, so lucky, man. It was actually, we could see the lights when we had gotten up that morning. We could see the people that were up there. So we knew it was full, but we also didn't know about it until we had climbed up there. So even if we would have gotten up there, I don't think we would have had room. But yeah, super jealous. It looked like an epic camp spot.
It was.
Yeah. And then for highlights, lowlights, it's kind of hard to pick out exact things. Like for the desert in the CDT, I really, really love that section. If we had a longer conversation around it, I could narrow it in and tell you like the days. But for this format, it's kind of like the broad desert of the CDT was just so barren comparatively to the PCT desert that it really showed me the differences between how much difference can be in one term. Like just the desert, how different it could be. Like there was nothing in the CDT desert, and I loved that. I absolutely loved getting my water from Cal tanks, just looking on the horizon and just feeling the desolate around you. I loved that. Love the Sierras on the PCT. And then highlights or lowlights. Let's see if I can get a low light for you. Slogging through Washington in some rainy days was rough for us. But we also were pushing like into the higher 30-mile days. So you kind of balance the low light with the highlight there. Again, it's amazing that hikers' minds gild the bad parts. So like trying to pick out a low light, again, if we talked longer, I might be able to narrow it in, but my mind's just gilding over and seeing, like my mind is like your background right now. It's just seeing all the pretty stuff. It's just seeing the fun. Yeah,
the human brain is funny that way. It has a tendency to forget the bad and hang on to the good. And as my mom would say, that's why there are multiple children in families. It's because the mother forgets the agony of childbirth and says, okay, let's do this again.
Yeah. I guess I can give you one low light. I carried a bottle of ranch on the AT for some reason, and I learned that was a mistake when it exploded in my backpack. That was not a fun day. Don't carry ranch on trail is I guess my other pro tip. But I don't think people need to hear that. They probably know that. So don't carry bottles of ranch on trail.
Oh man, that must have been a messy pack. Messy 70-pound pack, a 70-liter pack.
It was nasty. It was super nasty. And I don't think I washed it out for 2 or 3 days after that. Again, I just pushed through until something makes me change. So I just kept pushing through with it. But I don't know. I think it's just any trail you have, you're gonna have lowlights, but they're heavily outweighed with why you're out there and what you're enjoying out there. So nothing that sticks in my head enough that I would want to let people know about it.
Okay. Now, about how long did you spend on each of those long trails?
It went down. So as the trails got bigger, the time went down. So
Okay.
AT was 6 months and 6 days. PCT was 5 months and 4 days. And then CDT was 4 months and 4 or 5 days.
Okay. Yeah, so the longest trail took you the shortest amount of time of those three.
Yeah. Just kind of the progression of how I was hiking and what I was going out there for. So, and as you get more skills and more confident out there, you can do bigger miles.
Now, after being out there for months, when you get to the finish point, when you get to Katahdin, when you get to the monument at the Canadian border for the PCT and for the CDT, is post-trail depression, is that a thing? Did it hit you hard?
It depends how you define it. So like, I don't necessarily think it hit me in the classic term of post-trail depression. I know a lot of people feel it in different ways, but when I finished the AT, I was ready to be done at that point. Like I was ready to stop hiking for at least a little bit. And I think I alleviated it if it could have arisen by just being so busy I couldn't think about it. So like as soon as I finished these trails, I would instantly go back into work and just consume my time like 7 days a week working 2 jobs just so I could go out to the next trail. So like I would consume myself so fully, I had no time to maybe feel that and think that. And my partner, she likes to tell me that I just stay so busy so I can't feel my feelings. So maybe that's part of why it didn't hit me as hard. But yeah, I never felt the quote unquote classical form of it. Like I could see it in varying degrees how it could arise, but I don't know. I just stayed very, very busy to the point that I guess I didn't feel my feelings.
I think that post-trail depression for me would be offset by pizza elation.
Yeah.
Just getting back to some good food. Unless you hitting the trail towns, you maybe just pack some pizza with you out there.
We do. There was one time we finished up a trail. It was the GDT again, actually. And I hope she doesn't hear this. Magpie told me that I had to eat 4 dozen donuts within 24 hours. She did hear it. She's like, no, it wasn't her idea. It was my idea. So I decided to eat 4 dozen donuts within like 24 hours. And the amount of uncomfortable, like bloatedness I felt, it was terrible. So, yeah, I don't know. I guess pizza or donuts, whatever you want to find your solace in.
Oh man, 4 dozen donuts in 24 hours. That's craziness. That's a lot of sugar.
Yeah, it was so uncomfortable. It was once I get into a joke, I can't get myself out of it. So like I had told her for a while that I wanted to do this and I wanted to because I thought it would be funny. And it just backfired on me. I just was so uncomfortable and so broken down that I couldn't stop though. I had to finish the joke. So it was very uncomfortable.
Now, top 3 topics on the trail. On any long trail, what are the top 3 topics of conversation? I know 2 of them. I'm interested to hear what your third one is. I would say again, one is food, right?
Yeah, one is food. We talk quite a lot about philosophy, just weird philosophy, just how the brain works, and how your brain does weird thought tangents. So like we have the weird thought tangent and then kind of try to unpack it a little bit. So I guess philosophy, but then also if you're hiking around a lot of other hikers, bowel movements.
That's right. That's right. You prove my point. The top 2 topics are usually food and bodily functions, and then your third was philosophy. Very good.
Yeah, okay. And it's you also talk about like I don't know. There's kind of a competition of who had the most beautiful and serene poop. Like who had the best spot and who had like the best view and who had the best story. And I don't know, it's fun trading stories with that. Yeah.
Trying to one up the other person. My view
Yeah.
was better than yours when I was taking a crap this morning.
Or you try to one up with the embarrassment factor too, like what happened to you while you were doing it. So yeah, it's always some type of combination of the two there.
Well, let's give that a shot, Constantine.
Uh-oh.
I was doing my business on the JMT one morning and came face to face with a deer that wanted to know what the heck I was doing, pooping where I was pooping. It's like, hey, I eat here. What's going on?
Oh no, yeah, that's awkward.
How about you? You got a more awkward moment?
Yeah, I guess I can say this. So it was again on the GDT. We were walking into town, and to get into town, you had to do this massive road walk. So on a road walk, when you still got to do business, you got to find somewhere to do the business. So it's a completely empty road. Like not many cars are passing us. It's middle of nowhere. So I felt pretty confident I could pull off into these trees and kind of go about my business and do what I need to do. So where I pulled off, there's also kind of like an old rusty gate. So like it was next to this dirt road. So like if you're picturing it, there's a road here and then a road here. And I'm like there. So there's this dirt road, rusty gate with a lock on it. Doesn't look like it's been used ever. So I'm like on the side of the road in the brush doing my business, pants around the ankles. A full tour bus pulls up with tourists going to whitewater rafting, and they had to stop to unlock that gate. So they're literally stopped here, and I'm right here making multiple eye contacts with all these tourists. And the guy comes out, opens up the gate, and they slowly pull away. And it was just, I couldn't do anything. Like they saw me, I saw them. At this point, I don't know what they want. So they had a fun story for their vacation, I guess.
Constantine, you win. You win. That is a much more embarrassing story. Although we've all had moments where we've thought that we've picked a spot off trail that is nice and secluded, and we don't realize the trail bends back on itself. And lo and behold, you're doing your business, and someone comes walking by. And you're like, "Oops, hey, how you doing?"
Yeah, I don't want that prize. I don't want to win that category. Thank you, though.
All right. Hey, let's talk about the trail that really intrigued me when you reached out to me, and that is the North Country National Scenic Trail. Tell us about that. I don't think a lot of our listeners know about the North Country National Scenic Trail. I didn't know about it. So, where's it located? How many miles is it? What kind of terrain can you expect to find out there?
Okay, so yeah, I'll try to spark notes it so I don't ramble too much.
Okay.
It's another national scenic trail. So like the Appalachian Trail, Pacific Crest Trail, Continental Divide, it falls within that umbrella of national scenic trails. And it's the longest national scenic trail in the country. So their website says it spans about 4,700 miles, but we GPS tracked it and we pulled 4,833. Super long trail. It goes from, not Ohio, it goes from Vermont, actually the main junction of the Vermont Long Trail and the Appalachian Trail. It goes from there to middle of kind of nowhere, North Dakota. So it's 4,800 miles long, but technically it's because of all the loops. So like if you could walk from the East Coast Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific coast Pacific Ocean. You could walk there and back half a time, the same amount of miles it would take you to walk from Vermont to North Dakota.
So it is not a straight trail. There's a lot of curves to it.
No, we had a joke of that the Trail Association was just seeing how much of a circle a hiker would walk in before they said no. Because sometimes there was a loop that you had to do like 18 miles, or if you could have just done a mile across. And you understood why, because it's a trail that I think they're getting really better about thru hiker support and building it for thru hikers. But it was definitely a trail that was built with the idea in mind of day hikers and section hikers. That's where a lot of the use is gotten from. So that 18-mile loop for a day of section hiker, absolutely amazing because it brings you through some beautiful areas. But for a thru hiker that's fighting weather windows, sometimes that can be really tough mentally. So yeah, it goes through 8 states: Vermont, New York, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, Minnesota, Wisconsin. I'm sorry, I forgot Wisconsin, and North Dakota.
Very good. You named them all. I wasn't gonna try and pin you down there. That's I'll be putting you on the spot, but good job.
Oh, thanks.
I also have in my notes, I did my research as well, that it also traverses more than 160 federal, state, and local public lands and over 100 state parks, forests, and game areas.
Yeah.
Wow.
It goes through, I mean, any trail that long, it's going to go through some amazing things. And they really did route it wanting to put you in as much wilderness as possible when you're walking through the middle of the country. So that was amazing that they were able to do that. There's a lot of private land issues in the Northeast sometimes, but it's an ongoing trail. They're still working and still trying to create as much wilderness that they possibly can.
Mm-hmm. And what year did you do the North Country National Scenic Trail?
This year, we actually finished it close to a little over a month ago.
Okay.
A month and a half about. Yeah.
So that's going to be my question was, did you do this solo or with a friend? And it sounds like you did it with Magpie.
I would have gone absolutely insane if I did it solo. I did it with Magpie. Yeah, we did it together.
And when did you start? So we know you finished about a month ago, but and we're actually recording this right at the very end of December. So you finished late November?
Month and 3/4 ago, I guess, or early November.
Early November. And when did you start the trail?
We started May 1st and ended November 3rd.
Okay, so about 6 months.
Yes, slightly over. We wanted to go for either 4 to 5 months, but the mental fatigue that we hit at some points really hurt us hard with some 0 days. But we were stepping off the miles as hard as we could.
Mm-hmm. How many zeros did you take?
I have a spreadsheet somewhere. Little over or under 10, somewhere within that ballpark.
Well, that's not bad.
It was a lot of double zeros. So like we actually, I don't know if I guess I'll say it. We actually got vaccinated while we were on the trail, and we both had severe side effects for 2 days. And then there were 2 days that we also had bad water. So we had very messed up stomach issues from bad water. And then there were a few days that were kind of like general fatigue and sickness. And then 3 to 4 of the zeros were just pure mental fatigue of a trail that long. And a lot of it actually happened in Ohio because it was just so hot. But yeah, a lot of the zeros were not needed, but I guess they were needed in a sense.
Still, over the course of 6 months, 10 zeros, that's nothing.
It felt like a lot. We weren't going for that. It was just purely, it ground us down a little more than we anticipated. Sure. Yeah, it was just so long that sometimes when you were stepping hard miles, it felt like I've used this analogy before, but it felt like you were filling up a bucket with holes in it. Like you were throwing in 100 miles, like real quick in like 3 days or something. And then all of a sudden you had 4,000 whatever miles left. And it's like, it didn't feel like you were chipping away at it. So it wasn't giving you that drive.
Yes. Now you did 4,800 miles with your significant other, girlfriend, wife, fiance,
girlfriend. Wife, maybe.
I don't want to get you in trouble. So 4,800 miles with your significant other. We'll just say significant other out there. What is that dynamic like? I mean, because you're out there, you've just admitted it's a very stressful situation at times. I mean, it's a grind. I have to imagine over the course of 4,800 miles, she knows exactly who you are, and you know exactly who she is by the time you guys are finished. How did that all work for you?
So we knew who each other were very well before going into it. We'd done a lot of long distance trails beforehand. So like we actually met on a long distance trail. So we really knew and respected who the other person was. I think the NCT let us dive deeper into how both of us manage pain and suffering individually and also collectively. So again, if she was on, she might have a different answer for this. But to get through suffering for me, I find comfort in childlike humor or like deep, absurd levels of humor. I get super weird and I get super jokey, and that's how I find comfort. And she goes internal. She goes internally and gets quiet and soothes herself with just that type of peace. So we had different ways we were individually handling our stress, And when you combined it, sometimes I had an ongoing joke that would tell her not to walk across bridges because there were 20-ton weight limits. And I would say this like all the time. But it was playing on the joke that as hikers, you're super emaciated. So of course you're not big, you're emaciated. So it was playing on the absurdity of that. And she said it went from funny to annoying to funny again. So we knew who each other was, and we also really respected, and there was an unspoken language to it too. So like sometimes, yeah, you're gonna grate on somebody's nerves for a little bit, but we also knew we could step off the miles and just a little bit of space within 10, 20 minutes, whatever it may be, come back together and get stronger through it. So it was balance. It was just knowing, like you said, it was knowing each other and knowing what the other needed and looking out for what the other needed.
Mm-hmm. I imagine, and I've said this to other couples who have spent considerable amount of time on the trail with each other. Imagine if you have been able to survive, if your relationship has survived a 4,800 mile hike, that you guys can pretty much survive anything in terms of your relationship.
Yeah, I also have the joke. I'm really happy that NCT didn't have more cliffs on it, because I might have ended up in the gully somewhere. But it's a joke. It's a complete joke. But yeah, I think we did come out stronger than it. When we were getting close to the terminus, we had a few-hour conversation about what that meant to us and getting through that trail, what we found within ourselves, and then what we found collectively as a partnership. And yeah, I think we came out of it stronger.
Mm-hmm. What do your families think of, or what did they think when you said, hey, we're going to do this 4,800 mile hike?
It's just our lives at this point. There wasn't a big difference for them. My folks, they just knew I'd have been doing this for so long, year after year, that it wasn't really a difference for them. 4,800 miles, 2,200 on the AT, just longer. It's just a longer hike. So not a big deal. Her folks, also very supportive. She's been living this same type of life for 6 years. So they get used to it. They get used to this type of lifestyle, and they know that's what makes you truly happy. So they support it in the ways that they can understand and know about it.
Okay. Hey, finish the sentence for me. The best part about the North Country National Scenic Trail was
the length. That would have been a different answer about a month ago. About a month ago when we finished, that would have been a different answer. But with that length, it really lets you test yourself every day within your mentality and physicality. And it really made you dig past points that I personally didn't find on other trails. Like, it made you find a different threshold to find enjoyment and peace within the day. So I would say the length, because the length encompasses everything within that. The trail community, the people that you run across, our partnership going through it. So yeah, it would be a different answer about a month ago, but looking back, the length.
Okay. And that leads me to the next question. The reason I like long trails is?
I don't know. I like walking. I like hiking. I like the outdoors. I like the people out there. Again, it's such an open-ended question that we could sit here for a few hours and I just keep listing all stuff. It's endless. It's just, you always get something different, and you always have an experience that is not necessarily what you're looking for sometimes, but it's what kind of, I don't know, it teaches you something. It's hard. It's impossible for me to define that. I love almost everything about it. So it's very hard to define.
Okay. So did you go east to west or west to east on the North Country?
We went from Vermont to North Dakota.
Okay.
So westbound.
So what does Constantine, standing in North Dakota, having just finished the North Country National Scenic Trail, what does that Constantine whisper into the ear of Constantine showing up at Springer Mountain?
Wow. That caught me off guard. Wow. I want to say a joke, because that's a question that makes me feel a lot. So like trying to hide it with a joke. I would say something in a Mickey Mouse voice maybe, but I don't know. I think I would just tell him, keep hiking. Just keep walking. I don't think I'd try to give him any words of wisdom or anything complex. I wouldn't want to foreshadow anything for him either, because I would want him to completely experience what he did over these past few years without any plans, without any hints, without any tips and tricks. Because that's part of the fun. That's part of the journey, is like getting to go through that. So it would be something simple. It would be something simple that would make him kind of question, why is this person talking to me? It would be a Mickey Mouse voice, just keep walking.
Now I'm curious, why did that question give you the feels?
I don't know, because thinking back on where I was 6 years ago to where I am now, and doing all these trails, it's just become so ingrained into me that this is my life, that I don't know, there's a big difference, I think, between who I was 6 years ago and who I am now. And I would like to say it's a better difference. I'd like to say I've grown. It is always dependent on what other people say, because I can think I've grown, but if other people don't, I won't go too much into that. But it's a big change. It's a big change for me. And I think that past Constantine needed those miles and needed those years to get to the point he is today. But it's a big change.
Love it. The transformative nature of nature and the trail. I mean, you enter it in one state and one state of being, and you exit it having been changed. And like you said, for the good.
Yeah, and it's amazing how something simple as walking can be a conduit for changing life. In so many aspects, it doesn't have to be a full life change. It can be a micro thought change that just fuels your fire and gives you the energy to go back. And if you only want to do one trail, go back and work for the next 20, 30 years, whatever you want to do. It's amazing how something so simple can be so complex.
Yep. Now you've just finished 4,800 miles. The memories of the pain is faded from your mind. What's next for Constantine? What are you planning?
So we're really stoked this year to kind of do a road trip in the Southwest and do trail magic for a lot of hikers, because this year and last year we did a lot of trails that there's not necessarily a lot of other thru hikers around. There's a trail community around these trails, like with the Trail Association, Trail Angels, but not a whole bunch of other thru hikers. North Country Trail, like you said, Apple Pie's out there.
Mm-hmm.
Steady did it this year. That's 3 people on 4,800 miles. So we want to be able to give back to the community and be surrounded in that again. So starting around March or April, we hope to travel in the Southwest with the PCT and the CDT and maybe the AZT as well, and set up little pop-up Trail Angel type stuff for those hikers, while at the same time hitting a few 100 to 500 mile long trails just in between the travel. And then, if possible, we don't know yet, the Te Aurora, if those borders open, we hope to do that this winter, which would be their summer. And maybe, if we can, fit in a Sobo PCT hike. Maybe.
Okay. Now, the TA in New Zealand, if you're preparing for that, you should listen to my episode with Elena Osborne, Tip Tap.
Oh, yeah. I've heard of her.
She did a fantastic job describing her experience out there as well as on the PCT. And she was a lot of fun to talk to.
Yeah, I've heard some really great things about the TA. I wanted to do it after the CDT because it's kind of called the jewel on top of the Triple Crown. But then other trails grabbed my attention. So I've been stoked about the TA for a while.
Okay. And if you ever do trail magic down here in Southern California, let me know ahead of time. I'll join you.
Yeah, that would be awesome. We had a van, but unfortunately rats in this off season got into my partner's van. So I think we're going to end up just doing it with a Subi or something like that. So yeah, we'll definitely reach out.
All right. What kind of Subi?
2005. I'm not a car person. She knows better than I do.
Okay. Is it an Outback?
I want to say yes,
okay.
But I would also be saying yes to something that I don't know.
Well,
so.
as a fellow Subi owner,
oh,
I'm with you. Nice. Very good.
Oh, awesome.
Okay. So there you have it. That's it. Well, actually, I'm ahead of myself here. Constantine, do you know where we are? We are at that point of the episode where I ask you for your pro tip insight of the week. What nugget of wisdom can you share with our listeners to make their next outdoor experience even better?
If you do carry ranch, don't carry carrots. I got a better one. I would just say don't go too fast. A lot of weight especially lately, is put around people going fast. And if that's what you truly enjoy, do it because that's what you actually enjoy. But going into hiking, especially if it's your first hike, just walk. Like we were talking about earlier, just walk. It doesn't have to be a set amount of miles. Don't put pressure on yourself to do what others around you are necessarily doing because it might push you out of it. It might push you out of that enjoyment. If you want speed, eventually it'll come naturally if that's what you're looking for. Just don't go too fast. Actually sit back and let the trail come to you in the ways that it's going to come to you.
Okay. Excellent advice. Hike your own hike. Don't feel that outside pressure to do what others think you should be doing.
Yeah, it's definitely that. It's also like I think where we've been going a lot in the hiking community is there's all this weight in how fast you can go. And again, it's amazing because that's where people like to do, but it shouldn't filter down to people that don't want to do that. If people that don't want to do it, don't do it.
We can't all be setting FKTs out there. So slow down and enjoy.
Yeah.
Okay. So now there you have it. That's it. This episode is just about in the books. Hope our listeners enjoyed our time with Constantine. I want to thank him for joining us this week. Constantine, how can our listeners keep up with you on social media and where can they find updates on your latest adventures?
Oh, I got so much random stuff. Just 11 Skies. That would be the easiest. I would say just go to 11 Skies. That's the easiest where we actually post the most. Okay.
And is that an Instagram account or is that a website?
It's an Instagram account, website, Facebook.
Okay. 11 Skies.
All in one.
Got it. Remember to check out the pod on social media as well. We're on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And if you have comments or clips you want to share, you can send it to me at johnfreakinmuir@gmail.com. Constantine, I'm also looking to you to share a recommendation for a book, a movie, a documentary, some kind of adventure media that will keep our listeners connected to the trail. We're calling this our adventure media recommendation. What do you have for us?
Can I do a website?
Absolutely.
I really like what Legend's doing over on backpacking routes. Showing that you don't have to go out and do 1,000-mile long trails. You can go 20 to 50 miles. You can go 100 to 200 miles. There's so many trails out there that showing that there's that a type of availability and might spark something that somebody else thinks about. So I really like what he's doing over there, showing these other places that there are trails.
Yeah, Legend. He's been on a couple of times on the podcast, and somewhere along the line we exchanged phone numbers. And just out of the blue, literally like I think it was Christmas or the day after Christmas, I get this random text from him. He says he's catching up on episodes and he's having fun listening and just it made my year. I had to show my phone to all my family. I said, "Hey, look who just texted me." They're like, "Who's this Legend guy?" I saw you don't understand, but made my year. So
he's a great guy. He's a good guy.
Yep, for sure. And hey, before we wrap things up, I've got one more segment for you called "What Have I Not Asked You That You're Dying to Tell Us About?"
You didn't pick up on the Mickey Mouse voice.
You do some Mickey Mouse for us? Let's hear it.
Oh, I guess I should. It's who do you work for? DreamWorks. I would say that. I think I said that this year 10,000 times. It got Magpie fuming mad. She said Mickey Mouse couldn't come home with us, but as we know, Mickey Mouse is in the heart too deep.
He seems to be there with you guys. So
yeah, he's part of our life now. We've tried to get rid of him. We've tried to exercise him, but he's part of our life now, and that's how we got through the miles. Really,
I imagine after 4,800 miles, you know how to push her buttons, and she knows how to push your buttons.
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
We find enjoyment and fuel in that, and it's how you get through the days. Those tough days is finding the absurd and recognizing it for what it is, and that's where we have fun. So Mickey Mouse was a big part of that. She tried to get rid of him, but no.
Mickey Mouse would not die.
She said that term many times with different emphasis in that sentence. Yes,
that might be the title for this episode.
I love it.
Very good. Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, that's a wrap from the John Freaking Muir studio. Any shout outs to friends and family, Constantine?
Yeah, just shout outs to I don't know, any other hikers. Nobody specific. I don't know. I don't do specific really shout outs. So just everybody else out there stepping off any type of other miles. Just keep having a good time.
Keep stepping. All right. Thank you for tuning in. Always remember the trail is the trail. It doesn't care if you want to go downhill. It doesn't care if it's almost dark and you're looking for a campsite. It doesn't even care if your balaclava has a frozen layer of snot. The trail is the trail. Embrace the suck.